Got AppleMotion opened up here again. I was going to cover a few things on the 3D objects. I thought I'd start with, well, we'll just start with this new project here. Open that up. So we got a new project here, and what I like to do when I'm starting a project is organize everything, sort of get everything ready. As you see here, we got the project. If we open up Inspector, this is giving us the basics of the project. We can make changes if we need to. First thing I do is I like to get a few groups going so that different things can be put in them. So we got this one group here, but I'm going to right click here and get a couple more going. I like to sort of start creating a hierarchy of groups that can contain various parts of the animation. First of all, I'll rename. With hierarchies, I like to sort of name that main. We can start populating things in here. We'll leave those for the moment, but in this first one, I'm going to go into Library, and we'll go to the 3D objects, and we'll just pull in cone in there for a moment. So we've got this going. These can be duplicated if we need to get a few more. So all these three copies can be placed, will be in this main group. So these three cones can be individually changed. So I'll start with the first one, and first thing we look at is the anchor points, how we are going to place them so that they can rotate around a certain point. So we open up this and we grab the anchor point, and this is very simple. We just pull this up to the top here. So that's the first one. The second one, we do the same thing. Alternatively, we can set the first anchor point, and then when we make duplications, it'll all be the same. Now with the main group here, if we want to make some changes, we can. Now firstly, note that the group is in 2-dimensional. This will, if we rotate around, you'll see that there's our rotation. I'm going to reset that. We open up rotation and we can start looking at the Z, which is the same. But if you look, the 2-dimensional is flat at the moment. So until we change the group to 3-dimensional, then when we change that, we see we have some depth to it. So that's the first one. So that's the main control. Each one of these can be individually changed. Take the main group, and we're going to lower the scale down a bit, just so it fits. Make the position a little bit different as well. So that's controlling all these. Sometimes working out the rotation, so it's just a bit of trial and error on that. It's really the Z that we want to change. We'll put that at minus 120. That's a third of 360. We want that at 120. Sometimes it takes a bit of playing around with to work out what's going which direction. So we got these three, they each have their own parameters changed. If you want to animate any of these, you use your keyframes there. So you can animate the individual, what I call the subgroups, or you can take the main group and position that a little bit back to the center. So as you see, I've got to fix the anchor point on the main group. We've got the anchor point here, so I'll just move that up to the center. Sometimes it's hard to get exact center with this particular program. So now we've got this set up so we can actually animate the subgroups or the main group. So I'm just going to move that over, bring it up a little bit, maybe lower the scale a little bit more, get that out of the way. So we got that. So this is just your basics. Now if you say in the second group you want to add 3D text, there's your text layer within the group. Right above the return key on this Mac keypad, there's the /, and above it is a straight line. It's up and down. I've found that's quite useful to create just a rectangular line, really. And the reason I use text so that they can be colored with the appearance. You got your basics here, so you can put cracked paint on that. And I'll just make that a bit bigger. So we got the layout. We can just double check we got everything going there. You can base your anchor point based on the character, or if it's multiple characters, then the whole word or the line, whichever. So, or you can just hit all. So I'll do that. So we got that text there. If we go into format, you can bring the size up a bit. I think I'll just move that anchor point up towards the center, so that when we go into properties and we look at rotation, we can rotate it around that way. So the reason I use text, basically so that we have the ability to color. So I'm just going to go to properties and bring that scale up a bit more. Lower the position down a little bit so we can see something. And within the scale, you also have the ability to make it wider, up and down. Close that down a bit, and your depth will be that way. You can also affect your depth in your appearance under depth, so you can make it exact amount of pixels. So now this group here is still 2D, so we want to make that 3D, and we want to fix the anchor point. So another nice thing about the text is we can go into an appearance. If we were looking at the materials, we can, instead of having a single material, we can have multiples, and that gives us a choice of changing do that the same. So you can see the reason I use text is because they do give us the ability to change the colors. So now we got this, we'll go into properties, and as you see now we've got something with some color to it. If you wanted to do those multiple, you could. You can either put those all in the same line, and we're here, and a few more, just so we have that. And then we can take this text and back into format, and we can do our tracking. So we can actually make up some a little bit more interesting shapes there. Now when we rotate around, we have something like that. So all of a sudden it becomes very interesting. If you take that and duplicate it, firstly, actually I'm going to reset these back to or get our key. It's always good to keep your rotations zeroed out, and then when you make your duplicates, you can then you can make rotation based on something like that. You can move it forward and back in the Z space to give you a bit of mix to it. So you've got something like that. And like I said, with the idea of the text, we can make our colors, change our materials. The front, we can give ourselves another look as well. So you have a lot more flexibility. Unfortunately, you don't have many ways in the shape of text. We go back on that group. One which we can use is a period, because that gives us sort of a cylindrical column. So we got that. We can deepen it up. We can scale it up. We can go into make it multiple. So there we have this. So we got this group full of which I'll just rename 3D text. So now this is controllable with rotation. Actually, we're getting those both moving. If we go back, and if we want to separate this from that, you just make a new group that up, and I'll just call it period. So now we've got this one which we can rotate around separately. If you quickly notice with a 3D text, you notice there's a little X here, and this is the anchor point. So if we get this closer to the X, and we're a bit better of a chance of actually being more centered. So there it is there. When we add a camera to it, then we're working off the active camera. So then when we can change the angle of view, and you got your framing, which the framing means that the camera's anchor point is around the actual object, whereas the viewpoint, the anchor point is actually the camera itself. So when you change the framing so low that it actually brings it out into the Z space, and if you raise that angle up a little bit, so we can change the how we view it. So you can see how the camera is zooming in and out. So these are all things that can be animated and adjusted later. So we have our hierarchy here. If we wanted to throw, say, a light as well, then we have lighting too, which is also something that we can control. Spotlight, intensity. It's already set at the Z space. We can change the rotation a little bit. So you have that. Yeah, it illuminates from the side, and the angle of it depends on where it is in space as well. So so that's basically the 3D space as we see it. Now if we open up another one here, which is quite a bit more complicated, and I'll just break this down. We've got our light there, and now I was speaking about hierarchy here. So we got our main cones, which is here, and in that group we've got another subgroup which is cones there. And then I've done that because I've got two sets of animations. I've got this cone and that cone, and within this cone I've also got colorize, which I just wanted to point out that these 3D objects are very difficult to color if you're using them in multiple, because it sort of has this funny sort of X-ray. It doesn't really blend up. So if I go to color and just switch that off, then it looks a bit more realistic, like they're actually joined. So what I've done here is I've actually animated the main group here, or the subgroup, and then each one of these cones has got their own animation as well. So this gives you a lot more flexibility. When you're animating things, you can animate them individually, and then the whole group, and then really the main group can be animated yet again. So you've got 3 levels of animation and movement going on. And this is what I was talking about when I say hierarchy. You're planning your project based on what each component's going to do. Now this other one, this cylinder, I just wanted to show you what this cylinder here, which is pulled out of 3D object as well, the group itself is only 2D, so you're getting this flat. It still has 3D position and rotations and all that, but it's flattened out until you change it to 3D, and then you've got your depth for that. And with this in the library inspector, if you look at 3D objects, you've got all these to choose from, and all these can be like in the cones, I can put 2 together by moving the anchor point at the center, and you can start building up more complicated shapes with this one here, the carbon molecule. Go back in Inspector. So we open this up, and I've got the main group here of carbon, which affects everything together. This main movement, that keeps everything moving in the same planes. And then I did the second group so that there's two versions of animation we can do. So if we go into here, we've got the three different types: the long and skinny one, the thin one, and we take that off and it's gone. So you can just see. And then we've got the center one, and then we've got this other one here, the skinny one. So each one of these I've just achieved. It's the same shape. Here I've got duplicates so that, and they're 45 degrees of each other to fill it out. That's here. So if you look down here, we got two. We got one at 45 degrees and one at normal 0 degrees. And that each one, these are all duplicates of each other, but I've got the scales different. So just change that for those, just so you know that you have your master scale here, but you can also affect the scale here too to give yourself some more interesting. And if you go into this one, same thing. You can just sort of adjust these differently so that they have, you know, some bit more unique shapes, and of course the position and angles can be changed as well. So, and lastly, what I was getting onto before, these are again, like I was saying, I don't know, I think that the name of the symbol is pipe. It's the one just to the right of the brackets and just above the return and below the delete key. So you have the backslash, and you also have shift and then pipe, and that gives you each one of these here, which are so I've got this multiple one here, and these are scalable, and you can animate the different aspects of your life. If you go into text, you have multiple colors on the faces, and you can animate the tracking. So as you see, it's sort of acting like an accordion, but you can actually, you know, animate them right out. So again, you get combinations, and these are all just text symbols, which are again, there's a single one there which I have just copper, gold, that sort of thing, and nickel. So you can fix up the different faces with multiple colors. So that's basically it there. And as you see, with the hierarchies of these groups, they can each have their own animations and shape sizes, and they each have a main group. So you have the object, a subgroup, and this is your main group here. So have 3 or 4 different levels of property editing going on there. So you see, we can get some pretty interesting stuff going on. I used After Effects, and you had to use CD4 to get to this sort of stuff, and it was quite a lot more complicated. So although AppleMotion is somewhat limited with their 3D, it's still quite powerful because it's all within the same project. So this one here, I'll just let it play for a minute so you can get an idea of what's going on. Got some cylinder shapes here with some carbon. The period here, these are 3 periods that are in different directions. They're moving around. This is a letter O with ice material applied to it. And these are your pipe symbols that are set up. We've got 8 of them. So I've just hit pipe 8 times, and then I've adjusted the tracking so they're closed in, and then I've applied materials to it. So it gives you quite a complex, and the same with this back wall. It's just a series of those pipes that are just closed up a little bit with some cracked paint. And you can see there's a bit of lighting going on too. That light position can be animated to colors and all that. You can change it to ambient directional point or spot, and you can change it, fix the color, intensity. You want to bring the intensity up a little bit. Again, I'm talking about my hierarchy of planning here. So you see I've got the camera sitting on top, the main with the 4 components. If I open up the lights, I've got 6 different lights going on, and each one of those is animated doing a certain thing. I chose those colors because they tend to, when they mix, they go back to white, as you can see here in the center. So you can see it doesn't have to be a very complex project, but the main thing to take away from this is the fact that you're putting each one of these components in its own group, so that you have, there's 4 of those which are here, and that's what I've marked as text up. I've got this one which has got the O's in it and the periods becoming animated as individually. I'll just open up one more here. See how this is the original part in this timeline area. This is the original part, but I've moved the range over a little bit, so I continued on with a different type of layer. Now these are moving in and out. I'll show you the whole picture in a sec. So it's just sort of shooting off. With using these sort of techniques, you sort of can get around a lot of AppleMotion's limitations with their 3D. So what I'll do is close that off. I'll close that. Yeah, here it is here. So we've got this thing. There's an alpha layer on the back there. So as you see, there's some quite complicated and some good looking shapes there. Some lighting going on. So, and hopefully this is something you can take away and play around with, just remembering your hierarchy of the project and building it up so that you've got much more control over the individual bits. Anyway, I'll leave that with you. Hope it gives you a little bit of something to work with. Just bear in mind that it does take a lot of playing around with, and the main thing I would recommend is you keep an eye closely on your anchor points. So that's it. I'll leave you with that, and you can digest this a little bit and have a bit of a play around. It's just another way of looking at the 3D space, which is in AppleMotion. So take care. I'll leave you to it.